Bobbi Parker is the wife of Deputy Warden Randy Parker. The two had children and lived in a home alongside Oklahoma State Reformatory. Over the years, Bobbi had worked with several inmates in rehabilitation programs. Convicted murderer Randolph Dial worked as a caretaker at the Parker home. Bobbi began working with Dial when money was donated to the prison to start an art program. The two often spent time alone together in the Parker's garage, which had been converted into a ceramic studio. During this time, Dial apparently developed feelings for her. After a few weeks, Randy felt that Dial was spending too much time at the Parker home. He also believed that Dial was trying to control the arts program. He told Dial to back off Bobbi and the arts program. On the 30th of August 1994, the couple had breakfast with their daughters. Later, Randy left to go to work next door, and the children left to go to school. When Randy left, Dial was there already, working in the front yard. At noon, Randy came home for lunch and found the house empty. There was a note from Bobbi saying that she had gone shopping and left him a sandwich in the refrigerator. He didn't believe that anything was wrong. Randy later returned to the prison at 4:45 p.m. His older daughter called him, saying that Bobbi had not returned home. However, Randy said she had gone shopping and told his daughter not to worry. 30 minutes later, Randy returned home to find that Bobbi was still not back. Soon he began to fear that something had happened to her. He contacted the area hospitals, but found no trace of her. Randy remembered that he had not seen Dial that afternoon. He asked an officer to check Dial's cell. The officer discovered that Dial was not there. Randy feared that Dial had escaped and abducted with his wife in the process. Later that evening, Bobbi's mother, Clara, received a call from her. She told her mother to call Randy and the children and tell them that she loved them. She hung up before she could say anything else. Clara knew that something bad had happened to her. The next day, Bobbi called her best friend and gave her the same message. The friend felt that she was being held against her will. 24 hours later, her van was found abandoned across the Texas border. Investigators found that the van had been cleaned and there was no evidence of a struggle. Basic cigarettes were found at the scene. This was the brand that Dial smoked. Randy learned from an inmate that for several months Dial had been actively trying to barter for Valium on the prison black market. This led Randy to believe that Dial had drugged Bobbi when he kidnapped her. However, there's no concrete evidence of a kidnapping. Investigators considered the possibility that Bobbi had left willingly with Dial. He had made several comments to inmates that he was infatuated with her. However, investigators have noted that they found no evidence that suggests that Bobbi left willingly with him. Randy is certain that she would never leave voluntarily with Dial. 10 days after the disappearances, Bobbi made one final phone call, this one to her brother's wife. Once again, she sounded upset. She asked her sister-in-law to tell the girls that she loved them and that everything would be alright. This was the last time anyone heard from her. There have been several sightings of Dial and a woman who may be Bobbi. One of the most credible sightings occurred in September 1994 at an art sale in Galveston, in Texas. The woman had blonde hair, so investigators believe that Bobbi either dyed her hair or was wearing a wig. Witnesses said that she seemed nervous and scared. Investigators and Bobbi's family continued searching for her and Dial. It is thought he kidnapped Bobbi on the day he escaped. However, some believe she may have vanished voluntarily. The case was featured on America's Most Wanted. The program then received a tip from a viewer, which led to Dial's arrest in April 2005. He was located in East Texas on a chicken ranch, with Bobbi found working on the farm soon after. Dial was returned to prison, and Park was reunited with her family. However, she was later arrested and charged with helping Dial escape. The charges indicated that the two were romantically involved. Dial, however, denied this, claiming that he did kidnap her. He also claimed that the relationship was never romantic. He reportedly told her that he would harm her and her family if she tried to leave. Dial died in 2007 after a lengthy illness in Oklahoma at the age of 62. Parker's trial on escape charges began on the 5th of July 2011. Prosecutors claimed to have found photos, emails, handwritten letters, and condoms in Bobbi and Dial's trailer, indicating that the two were a willing couple. They also claimed that Bobbi previously had intimate contact with other prison inmates. Bobbi denied this and insisted she had been drugged and kidnapped by Dial. However, she was later convicted of helping Dial escape from prison. After serving 6 months of a 1-year sentence, she was released. She had since moved back with her husband Randy Parker. She continues to maintain that she did not help Dial escape. On the 29th of August 2003, 22-year-old New Mexico University graduate student Katie Sepich spent a relaxing day with her roommate Tracy Waters at the Mesilla Valley Mall, looking for a turquoise ring that Katie hoped her boyfriend would buy for her. The two women were to be bridesmaids at a friend's wedding. 2 days later, Katie attended a party at a friend's house. She left the party to go home at 3 a.m. It was only a 2-block walk. However, on her way, she was almost struck down by a truck. The driver followed her home and approached her as she tried to get into a rented house after accidentally leaving her keys at the party. As she tried entering her house through the bedroom window, she was abducted. The next day, the hunters found her body in the desert. She had been raped, strangled to death, and then set on fire. In December of 2006, DNA evidence was found on Katie's body. It was linked to a suspect named Gabriel Avila. Avila was then arrested. At the trial, he confessed to Katie's murder and pled guilty on the 3rd of May 2007. Avila said he simply lost it as he grabbed Sepich, raped her outside her bedroom window, and then strangled her with his hands. He then placed Sepich's body in his trunk, deposited her body at the old dump, and used alcohol to burn her body. Avila was extremely remorseful for his actions. He asked to apologise face-to-face to Sepich's family. Katie's father, David Sepich, said, "We did not get another chance to see her in this life, and it's only right that the person who did this to her not get a chance to experience freedom again in his life." Katie's parents pushed the passage of state law requiring that DNA samples to be taken from adults arrested for certain felonies, including murder, sex crimes and robbery. Dubbed Katie's Law, it expanded the requirements for DNA samples. Avila was sentenced to 69 years in prison and won't be eligible for parole for at least 30 years. Debi Whitlock was a 32-year-old married mother of a 3-year-old daughter and an assistant manager at Sears in Modesto, California. On the 24th of March 1988, Debi's husband Harold left their house to go to a bachelor party. Early the following morning, he returned to find his wife brutally raped and murdered, with her lifeless body sprawled across the floor. Her throat had been viciously slashed, and she had been stabbed several times. The attack occurred while their daughter slept in the bedroom next to hers. Debi's mother, Jackie McDonald, began a relentless search for her daughter's killer. Debi's husband, Harold, and her ex-boyfriend were initially considered suspects, but they were later cleared of any involvement, as DNA evidence found at the crime scene did not match them. She began offering a $10,000 reward, renting billboards, and handing flyers to local businesses. The case was even profiled on America's Most Wanted in 1992 and aired as part of a 1994 segment on Unsolved Mysteries. Despite all of this, however, progress on her daughter's case seemed stalled. In December of 1996, a former drug dealer came forward and told police that he knew who had killed Whitlock. He explained that he had seen McDonald's billboards and wanted to do the right thing. He mentioned that on the night of the murder, 27-year-old Scott Avery Fizzle had met with the witness and told him that he killed a woman during a burglary. The witness didn't come forward sooner because he had previously been in trouble with the law. He declined the reward, and police used the information to start a month-long search for Fizzle, who was a drifting day labourer and had lived in Modesto at the time of the killing. On the 21st of January 1997, they tracked him down in the tiny town of Flippin in Arkansas. He worked in a boat factory, and after questioning him about the case, he maintained his innocence, although he was not believed. His DNA was collected and matched to evidence found at the crime scene. He was then arrested and charged with Debi's murder. In 1999, he pleaded guilty to a murder and was sentenced to 31 years in prison. He will be eligible for parole in 2021. After hearing the news of his arrest, McDonald went to Debi's grave at Evergreen Memorial Park. "We did it, kid," she whispered, touching the headstone. "You can rest in peace." 23-year-old Kevin Hughes was a chart director for Cashbox magazine in Nashville, Tennessee. He was in charge of compiling the independent country chart. As chart director, he received playlist reports from different radio stations throughout the country. Based on these reports, he ranked records from 1 to 100 according to their popularity. A high position on these charts would be a great help for an aspiring musician or music group. According to his boss and co-workers, he was a hard worker and did his job well. Sometimes he would stay up until 10 p.m. working on the charts. On the night of Thursday, the 9th of March 1989, Kevin was finishing work on the newest charts when his friend, aspiring singer and songwriter Sammy Sadler, stopped by. At approximately 8:30 p.m, they left the office to go to a nearby restaurant for dinner. After dinner, they made an unplanned stop at Sammy's work, Evergreen Records, so he could use the phone. While there, Sammy heard the sound of someone trying to open the door. Kevin looked outside and saw a man walking away from the area. A few minutes later, the two left Evergreen Records. They looked for the unknown man, but did not see him. They then walked to Kevin's car. As Sammy entered Kevin's car from the passenger side, an unknown gunman came up and shot him. Kevin tried to flee the scene, but he was tragically shot and killed on the street. Sammy, however, survived the shooting, despite the bullet severing a major artery in his arm. Despite having 5 witnesses to the shooting, nobody could give a good description of the assailant. After his murder, there was speculation that he had been killed in a dispute connected to his work, possibly a professional hit. However, investigators could not find any evidence to support any theory. They felt that a professional hit was unlikely, since the killer shot but did not kill Sammy and left several witnesses behind. Investigators tried to determine who killed Kevin Hughes. It was unknown if the man that Kevin saw near Evergreen Records was the shooter. He was described as either black male or white male with a ski mask. The shooter was believed to have dropped a hat that was found at the scene. It had the inscription World War II veteran and damn proud of it, with a picture of a combat infantryman. Several theories came about surrounding Kevin's murder. One was that Kevin had been involved and was a witness to a chart manipulation scheme. However, there appeared to be no evidence that he would be involved in such a scheme. Another theory was that Kevin and Sammy were victims of a robbery gone wrong. However, this theory didn't make sense, as the assailant had shot both victims without attempting to steal anything from them. Also, the assailant chased Kevin down and executed him. An armed robber would most likely not go to this length to kill someone. Yet another theory was that Kevin was the target of a misguided grudge from an angry manager or performer. The case was solved in 2002 when Richard D'Antonio, a disgruntled former employee of Cashbox, was arrested and charged with Kevin's murder. Investigators determined that Kevin had found out that D'Antonio had been accepting money to place artists on the Cashbox music chart list. He had also learned that Chuck Dixon, a record promoter at Cashbox, appeared briefly in the original segment, praising Kevin's fairness in creating the list was behind the scheme. Authorities believe that Dixon had D'Antonio kill Kevin in order to keep him quiet. In fact, a witness stated that Dixon said Kevin would be handled or gone, and that he would not be able to reveal the truth about the scheme. However, Dixon died in 2001 before he could be charged in the case. In addition to the Cashbox scheme, there was other evidence connecting D'Antonio to the murder. He matched the description given by witnesses of the shooter. One witness notes that he walked with an unusual side-to-side gait, which was similar to how D'Antonio walked at the time due to a back problem. Black cat hair was found in the hat left at the scene, was similar to a cat that D'Antonio owned at the time. Also, a witness told police that he sold a .38 pistol to D'Antonio shortly before the murder. This type of gun was used in the murder. The witness gave D'Antonio ammunition, which was the same type that was used to kill Kevin. The witness also told police on the day of the murder, D'Antonio test-fired the weapon into the witness's backyard. Investigators recovered bullets from his backyard. One was determined to have been fired from the same gun that killed Kevin. The witness, along with D'Antonio's wife, were told by D'Antonio to lie about his whereabouts in order to create him an alibi. Investigators did not believe he could have been the shooter until the witnesses came forward and told the truth. In September 2003, D'Antonio was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. He, however, died in prison in September 2014. 22-year-old Aimee Willard was a star lacrosse player at George Mason University and had received a full athletic scholarship from there. By her junior year, she was ranked among the top 25 female lacrosse players in the United States. According to her mother Gail, she always enjoyed playing lacrosse, and it didn't matter if a team won or lost. In June 1996, she returned home for summer in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There she enrolled in classes at a local school. On the night of the 19th of June that same year, Aimee met with friends at Smokey Joe's Tavern, a well-known college hangout in Wayne, Pennsylvania, just outside Philadelphia. She stayed for about 3 hours and drank less than one beer. Her friends reported that she left between 1:30 to 1:40 a.m. At 2:03 a.m, her car was discovered by an off-duty paramedic. It was parked on the shoulder of the highway transition road on the exit 5 off-ramp of Interstate 476. The car was running, the headlights were on, the radio was playing, and the driver's side door was wide open. Aimee wasn't there, but fresh bloodstains nearby suggested that she was assaulted and abducted. An investigation revealed more blood on the right side of the car and a guardrail. A palm print was also found on the car. Tyre tracks were also found next to it. At 10 a.m, authorities located her underwear and tennis shoes at the top of a nearby entrance ramp. At daylight, the search had expanded to include helicopters, K9 units, and a group of volunteers. As the search for Aimee continued, a witness came forward saying he had driven on the ramp the previous night and saw her car. Her lifeless body was found that afternoon by children playing in a vacant lot in North Philadelphia. She had been dumped 17 miles from where her car was found. An autopsy determined she had died of blunt force trauma. Authorities later learned that the witness who had seen the car had just worked 5 blocks from where the body was found. As a result, investigators began to focus more on him. Initially, the witness cooperated with police. Then police searched his car and found handcuffs and a flashlight normally used by police officers. When authorities searched his home, they found more police paraphernalia, along with a magazine that could be used to order police equipment. Authorities then learned that he had previously been charged with impersonating a police officer. Without warning, he stopped cooperating with the police and hired a lawyer. Surprisingly, he changed his story, claiming he had never been on the ramp that night. Although he remained a suspect, police didn't have any evidence that linked him to the murder. Meanwhile, a second witness came forward to say that he was on the highway transition road on the night of Aimee's murder. The off-duty state trooper admitted to seeing Aimee and reported seeing a police car parked behind hers. He briefly spoke with the officer and then drove away. Authorities claim that he was in a different location at the time, but he insists he saw a police car parked behind Aimee's that night. Then, 1 week after Aimee's murder, a local police officer came forward to say that he was at her car that night. However, he said he did not see the state trooper. Instead, he said he saw the off-duty paramedic parked behind a car. Authorities spoke with the paramedic, and he said he didn't speak with the police officer that night. The police officer later admitted to lying to the police. He has since resigned and agreed to cooperate with the investigation. Authorities considered all 3 men possible suspects. They noticed that each one inserted themselves into the investigation for no apparent reason. All 3 claimed to have seen her prior to her death. The police impersonator worked near the area where her body was found. The state trooper lived a block away from where she and Gail lived. And finally, the police officer was known to frequent the hospital where Gail worked. Up to this point, authorities didn't have enough evidence to charge anyone in relation to Aimee's death. However, authorities believe whoever abducted Aimee approached her under the guise of an authority figure, so she stopped her vehicle. Her mother believes she may have realised something was wrong and then tried to flee. Her assailant then struck her in the head and then took her elsewhere to dump her body. Authorities hoped that witnesses would come forward to identify Aimee's killer. Most of her clothes had not been found. On the night of her murder, she was wearing khaki shorts, a white t-shirt with sunflower design, and white ankle socks. A tyre impression expert determined that those found at the scene were from a Firestone 440 13-inch tyre, usually found on small compact cars. The case went cold for nearly 2 years until it was solved in December 1997. 38-year-old Arthur Boehmer Jr. was arrested and charged with rape, kidnapping, and murder of Aimee. Interestingly, he was not one of the original suspects in her case. Police were led to him after a 19-year-old woman reported an attempted carjacking to police. She claimed that a man followed her from a local nightclub and deliberately struck the back of her car. He tried to get her to pull over, but she refused. As he drove off, she took note of his number plate. The vehicle was registered to Boma. 20 years earlier, in 1978, he had been convicted of second-degree murder in Nevada and was sentenced to life in prison. The victim was a woman who was killed in a parking lot. For unknown reasons, he was released on parole after serving just 11 years. He had a history of problems with the law, including assaults on several young women. In 1990, he had been charged with the attempted murder of a woman named Teresa Thompson. However, he was released after she died of a drug overdose in 1991. He was also connected to the rape of a Philadelphia college student. Authorities learned on the day that Aimee vanished, Philadelphia police had pulled Boma over for questioning on an unrelated matter. He was stopped just 6 blocks from where her body was later found. Police went to interview him about the case, but couldn't find him. However, a few days later, he was arrested for trying to break into a woman's apartment. In his pocket was a set of keys for a Honda. He had put his license plate on the vehicle. Disturbingly, it was discovered the Honda belonged to 25-year-old Maria Kubunos, who had vanished 3 months earlier. It is believed she had been abducted on Route 476, the same route where Aimee had vanished. Dry blood was found in the trunk of the car. Both bumpers were slightly scraped like Aimee's car. Boma had become the prime suspect in both cases. Boma's alibi was that he was at a birthday party on the night of Aimee's murder. However, his fiancée said that he was at Smokey Joe's Tavern that night. They located the Ford Escort that he was driving that night. There was slight damage to the front bumper, and his tyres matched the impression found near Aimee's car. Furthermore, police found blood on the door. DNA testing determined it was Aimee's. Finally, underneath the car, they noticed an oil pan which had the same pattern that matched a strange burn mark that was found on Aimee's upper body. Boma's DNA also matched semen found on Aimee's body. Authorities believe that he noticed her at Smokey Joe's Tavern and followed her along Route 476. They believe that he purposefully hit the back of her car. Damage was found on it, which supported this theory. When they got out to exchange information, he struck her with a tire iron and abducted her. Before his trial, police found Maria Kubunos' skeletal remains in nearby Bucks County. Like Aimee, she had also died from blunt force trauma. He was convicted of Aimee's murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection. At sentencing, he flipped the bird at Gail and told her and her 2 kids to go F themselves. Boma remains on death row. He was never charged in Maria Kubunos' case.